Well, let's get more about what's been making headlines in finance and economic news. We're talking now with Suzanne Haddan, who's the Managing Director at BFG Financial Services. Thanks for coming in, Suzanne.
Good to be here.
Let's start with the Banking Royal Commission. We've had more revelations this week. We're focusing on super this week. Does Australia's super system need an overhaul?
I think the Royal Commission will fall to say yes, there will be some overhaul. There'll be more of a focus of trustees of doing what's in our best interest, not necessarily their own. And ASIC will be under the spotlight, as will APRA, I believe.
Well, there are 2 points there. We'll get to ASIC in a moment. First, though, as far as super is concerned, now I know this is certainly a subject that is dear to you because you're worried about certainly the millennials and whether they'll have enough super when they retire. There has been a bit of a breakdown in figures. It doesn't paint an overly rosy picture for a lot of people wanting to retire.
Poverty in retirement is a composition of what wealth you have from superannuation and other assets. And one of the other key elements is whether you're a homeowner. And we're seeing homelessness in the over 65. So when we look at the millennials with their difficulties getting into the home market and the superannuation contributions probably not going to reach enough wealth, what's going to happen there? The idea of super was to also take the burden off the age pension system. That's not going to happen if we don't have a change in how much super millennials have and get them into the property market, which I think gives them security.
Yes, of course, if they're looking at retiring without that asset of a home, of owning your own home, without necessarily a big enough super, and then they'd have to rely more on the pension. That would put incredible strain on the pension system.
It will put incredible strain, and we don't want them to wait for us to have to die for them to have some financial well-being. And so we have to look at strategies now. The tip I want to give is that from small things, big things grow. And what's happening is, for millennials, the idea of owning a home seems such a big, audacious goal and scary. To get there, they're not saving the small amounts. We've spoken before about when you're a teenager, just a part-time job, putting $20 a week in your super, you get another $10 from the government. That can give you $15,000 towards your own home in your 20s.
It's easy to say, though, but in practice it's so much harder, isn't it? Because as we know, when you're young, you don't want to have to think about that because it's all about the here and now and having that money to spend. So sort of pocketing a bit of extra money every week, I guess, is difficult, isn't it?
It is difficult if you don't get the habit. And as parents, I think we have this role of teaching budgeting from an early age. I know people find it boring, but creating wealth is about spending less than you earn. We know millennials stay home longer. So that should hopefully mean with some budgeting, they have some cash they can put towards saving for a home. Let's bring the concept back of charging board. And maybe if you as a parent don't need it, put it aside and invest it for the children.
Yeah, not a bad idea. Now, we've also...
sorry, I was just going to pick up Suzanne on her other point about ASIC, because you mentioned that they're under focus from the Banking Royal Commission. And as to whether they're actually a toothless tiger, as far as that's certainly what the former chair of the ACCC, Alan Fells, has had to say, that the power should be removed from ASIC to regulate the banks, and the ACCC should have a crack.
Well, so we've got APRA as the prudential regulator, not the conduct regulator. We've got ASIC as the regulator for corporates, and then we've got ACCC. I don't think it's so much about taking responsibilities away from a particular group. It's about the interaction of our three bodies, and four, including the ATO. I think the Royal Commission will land that they will look at what powers ASIC need. We have to give them the right laws to enforce. We have to give them the powers, and we have to give them the penalties and the resources. So it's going to be a focus. Whether it should go to the ACCC is a much different question.
So do you think we'll see that real result from the Banking Royal Commission?
I think ASIC would be able to ask for many things from the government and have a good chance of getting them.
Yeah, right.
Well, now's the time, isn't it? Particularly when you've got the people behind you. Let's take a broader look at the economy, because we just had the release of the quarterly statement on monetary policy, which I guess there's no real surprise there, because it looks at inflation in particular. It's just not moving higher, is it? And of course that impacts interest rates going forward.
Absolutely. Not only is inflation not moving to the upper band of their 2 to 3% target, there's concern that it might come down to 1.75%. And we're talking about interest rates probably not going up to 2020. There even isn't a group of economists who are suggesting maybe we need a rate cut. And we all might go, "Hooray, that's great for our mortgages," but that's giving you bad news, because that's telling you they're not sure wages are going to grow. And consumer spending needs to go up. Without that, we have a problem. The other issue is that we are seeing property prices reduce in the capital cities. I think Sydney's down about 6.5% over the year, and the Reserve Bank likes that. But on the flip side, people can lose confidence. Oh, my property's dropping. I'm dipping into my spendings because I'm not getting a wage rise, and they get nervous, and that affects the economy.
Yes, because of course we've been hearing people talking about the rise in interest rates and saying that it won't happen until wages rise. But if that rise in interest rates keeps getting pushed back, what does that then say about wages?
Well, it's giving us the unfortunate news that our wages might not go up as we expect. And also we've spoken about out-of-cycle interest rate rises. So we're still seeing little bits of rises in mortgage rates, no rises in real terms in your wages.
Now, also the RBA painting a fairly rosy picture as far as economic growth is concerned. They're forecasting that it's expected to accelerate to 3.25%. Some are saying that's too optimistic. Interesting, though, some comments this past week by the RBA Governor Philip Lowe saying a lot of the economic growth is on the back of our population growth. And of course, it's just ticked over to 25 million.
It was a great speech. Larry Loser, I love reading those documents and the demographics of it. But we can have a small Australia or a young Australia. I think it's difficult to have both. And what's happening is the immigration, over 80% of them are under 35 and really well educated, because we're bringing them in as students. I think 500,000 students here from overseas, charge them full fees, and then we're keeping quite a few of them and getting them to employ them and use their education that they paid for and pay taxes. And it was predicted our average age would be 45 by 2040. It's down to 40.
Yeah, right.
So we've got the Botox happening.
Yeah, I'm already feeling old.
Suzanne, we'll leave it there. Thanks so much for coming.
Thanks for having me.